I'll give you my entire salary if you can translate this." The billionaire CEO laughed mockingly, waving the mysterious Chinese documents in the air like they were worthless trash. He had no idea he was betting against the wrong person. "Move out of the way. Important people are coming through." David Richardson barked at Maria Santos, shoving her cleaning cart so hard it nearly knocked her over. It was a Tuesday morning in March, and he was particularly irritated because his company had just lost a potential $2 billion investment deal with a Chinese conglomerate the week before. Maria simply lowered her head and whispered, "Sorry, sir," while stepping aside into the corner of the hallway. David was 48 years old and ran one of the largest investment firms on Wall Street. He wore suits that cost more than most people's annual salaries, and had that arrogant demeanor of someone who never had to work for anything in his life. To him, people like Maria were just inconvenient obstacles that appeared in his path. "Jennifer," he shouted to his secretary as he entered his office. "How many times do I have to tell these cleaning people not to get in my way when I'm arriving?" Jennifer, 38 years old, had worked for him for 6 years and knew his explosive temper well. "Mr. Richardson," she was just doing her job. "Job, standing in the middle of the hallway is a job now," he snapped back, throwing his briefcase on the desk with force. "These people don't understand hierarchy. They think they can occupy any space like they own the place." Maria heard everything from the hallway. At 45 years old, she had worked there for 3 years and was used to this type of treatment. She wore the simple blue uniform of the contracted cleaning company and was practically invisible to most employees. But she heard everything, observed everything, and stored every humiliation she received. The day was running normally until the mail arrived with a delivery that would change everything. It was a thick envelope with international postage, addressed directly to David. When he opened it and saw the contents, his expression changed completely. There were several documents in a language he had never seen in his life, full of strange symbols and impossible-to-pronounce words. "What the hell is this?" he muttered, flipping through the papers with disgust. "Sort looks like something from another planet." Jennifer approached nervously when he started shouting again. "Jennifer, come here and solve this mess. Someone sent papers in some alien language." She took the documents and examined them carefully, trying to decipher something that made sense. "Mr. Richardson, it looks like Chinese or maybe Japanese. There are official stamps and the company name here." "Chinese?" David laughed loudly, in that mocking way he used whenever someone tried to appear smarter than him. Who the hell speaks Chinese in America? This must be some international scam. But when Jennifer showed him there were numbers that looked like values in billions of dollars in today's date, he realized it could be something serious. "Then get a translator. There must be some around who can solve this quickly." From there began the desperation. Jennifer called all the translation companies she knew, but none had professionals available for such specialized documents. As the hours passed, David became increasingly nervous. "What do you mean nobody can do it?" he exploded, pounding his fist on the desk. "I'll pay whatever it takes. This city has 8 million people and nobody can translate some damn papers." The news spread throughout the office. Employees began gathering curiously, trying to help with online translation apps, but nothing worked. That's when Amanda from finance brought information that terrified David. "Sir, official documents like these usually have deadlines for response. If you ignore them, you could lose legal rights." David examined the papers again and saw a date clearly marked for that same day, at 6 p.m. It was almost 3 in the afternoon and he started sweating cold, imagining he could be losing an important opportunity. "This is ridiculous," he shouted at all the employees who had gathered. "A company my size can't solve a simple translation problem." That's when his arrogance took over completely. David, at the height of frustration, decided to turn it into a cruel joke. He raised the documents high and shouted for the entire office to hear. "Listen here. I'll give my entire monthly salary to whoever can translate this thing," he said, laughing loudly, as if it were the funniest thing in the world. $200,000 for whoever understands this Martian language. The employees laughed along, thinking it was a joke. After all, $200,000 was more than most of their annual salaries. Nobody took it seriously. "For that price, I'd learn any language in 5 minutes," shouted Robert from commercial. Everyone laughed even louder. The situation had become collective comedy, with employees making jokes about invented languages and extraterrestrial translators. David loved being the center of attention, especially when he could demonstrate his financial superiority. But in the middle of all this confusion, one person observed everything in absolute silence. Maria was in the hallway organizing her cart, paying attention to every word. For 3 years she had been treated as invisible, heard prejudiced comments, been ignored as if she weren't human. When she got close enough to see the documents that David was waving in the air like garbage, her eyes widened, not from surprise at the language, but at the content she could understand perfectly. Those papers weren't spam or common commercial correspondence. They were documents from a major Chinese investment firm informing about a $2 billion partnership opportunity that had been reconsidered. Maria swallowed hard. The documents explained that Richardson Investments had been selected as the exclusive partner for a massive infrastructure project in Southeast Asia. But there was a deadline. Until 6 p.m. that day to confirm receipt and initiate the legal process. She looked at the clock. 3:30 p.m. There was still time, but not much. And there was David making jokes about something that could completely change his life, offering his monthly salary to whoever solved a problem she could resolve in 10 minutes. Maria felt a mixture of indignation and opportunity. For 3 years, she had been humiliated, treated as if she were stupid, ignored as if she didn't exist. Now she had the chance to show that appearances deceive. She took a deep breath and stepped forward. "Excuse me, Mr. Richardson," she said with a firm but respectful voice. "I can help with the translation." The entire office fell silent. Everyone turned to look at the cleaning lady who had dared to interrupt the boss's fun. David stopped laughing and stared at her with total disbelief. "You what?" he asked, as if he hadn't heard correctly. "I said I can translate the documents for you," Maria repeated, maintaining an upright posture. "I know the language." The laughter that exploded in the office was even louder than before. Employees laughed to tears, thinking it was the most absurd joke they had ever heard. The cleaning lady wanting to translate documents that professional translators couldn't solve. David laughed so hard he had to lean on the desk. "Did you hear that, people? The cleaning lady here is a polyglot. How nice, dear. So you're going to make me earn $2 billion by translating Chinese papers." He didn't even know he had guessed both the language and the amount. But Maria knew, and she was ready to accept the challenge he had thrown without imagining who he was dealing with. "Look here," David continued, still laughing. "The lady who can't even clean the hallway properly wants to solve a problem that professional translators couldn't." The employees laughed even more. Some even applauded, thinking it was the funniest show they had ever witnessed in the office. But Maria didn't waver. She knew exactly what she was doing. The deadline kept running, and in a few hours, that joke would turn into the most expensive lesson David Richardson had ever received in his life. "Mr. Richardson, I'm not joking," Maria said, taking another step forward while the entire office still laughed at the situation. "I really can translate those documents." David wiped tears from laughing so much and looked at her as if he were seeing a talking animal. "Oh, sure you can. And I can fly too. Listen here, dear. Go back to your broom and let the adults solve serious problems." The collective laughter echoed through the office again. Jennifer even felt bad about the situation, but didn't have the courage to interfere. After all, she also found it impossible for a cleaning lady to solve something professional. Translators couldn't. Maria didn't move, stayed firm in the same place, with her eyes fixed on the documents David was holding. "Can I at least take a look at the papers? Maybe I can identify some words." "Identify some words," Robert from commercial shouted between laughs. "Lady, this isn't child's play. These are complex legal documents." "Yeah, stop insisting," Amanda from finance added. "You're just going to make things worse." But Maria didn't give up. There was something in her posture that drew attention, a determination that didn't match the image everyone had of a simple cleaning lady. "Mr. Richardson, you yourself said you'd give your salary to whoever translated it. I'm here offering to try." David stopped laughing for a few seconds. There was something in her voice that bothered him, a confidence that shouldn't exist. "Fine. Since you insist on embarrassing yourself, I'll give you this chance. But when you can't do it, I want you to apologize to everyone here for making us waste time." He extended the documents to her with a disdainful gesture. "Go ahead, genius. Show us how it's done." Maria took the papers carefully, as if she were holding something very valuable. The moment her eyes met the text, something completely changed in her expression. It was as if she had come back to life, as if a part of her that had been dormant for years had awakened. "Zun Jing de Richardson Xian Sheng," she said in a low voice, reading a line from the document. Women hen rong xing di tong nin. The office fell into absolute silence. Everyone stopped laughing instantly. It was impossible to fake that perfect pronunciation, that natural fluency that came from Maria's mouth as if she had been born speaking Chinese. David's eyes widened. You're actually reading that? Yes, sir, Maria responded, still with her eyes fixed on the documents. It says, Dear Mr. Richardson, we are honored to inform you about the legal situation regarding the partnership opportunity left by our previous negotiations, concluded in Beijing on February 15th of this year. David's jaw literally dropped. He had been in Beijing in February for investment negotiations. He had no idea they were still considering the partnership, but even more shocking was hearing that woman he despised speaking with perfection, a language he didn't even know existed. Continue, he said, his voice coming out almost as a whisper. Maria continued reading, translating with a fluency that left everyone speechless. Your company, Richardson Investments, has been selected as the exclusive partner for the Southeast Asia Infrastructure Development Project. The investment value is $2.1 billion, including properties in Shanghai and a considerable banking operation. As the designated representative of American operations, you have legal right to all partnership benefits. $2.1 billion. The number echoed through the room like thunder. David had to lean on the desk to keep from falling. It was money enough to multiply his company by 50, to guarantee the future of 5 generations of his family. But there's a condition, Maria continued, turning the page. You need to confirm receipt of this correspondence by 6 p.m. today, Brasilia time, and send the signed confirmation documents by midnight. If you don't meet the deadline, the partnership will be offered to the second choice company on our list. David looked at the clock, 3:50 p.m. Less than 2 hours to confirm and only 8 hours to send everything back. Desperation took hold of him completely. How do you know Chinese? He asked, still trying to process what was happening. Maria folded the documents carefully and returned them to him. I was a linguistics professor at Columbia University, Mr. Richardson, specialist in East Asian languages. I worked there for 18 years. The office fell silent again, but this time it wasn't from laughter. It was from pure shock. That woman they saw every day cleaning bathrooms and emptying trash cans had been a university professor. You were a professor? Jennifer asked, genuinely curious. What happened? Maria sighed deeply. She didn't like talking about the past, but realized she needed to explain to be taken seriously. I lost my job 2 years ago. I exposed a corruption scheme at the university where some professors were selling grades and diplomas. I was fired for causing institutional instability. And then? Amanda asked, now with a completely different expression. Then I was blacklisted from the academic world. Nobody wanted to hire someone who had reported colleagues. My husband was unemployed. My daughter needed medical treatment. I accepted the first job that appeared. Maria's story hit the office like a bomb. Employees who minutes before were laughing at her now looked at her with a mixture of respect and pity. It was impossible to imagine that this quiet woman who cleaned their offices every day had been a respected professor. Me, are you sure about the translation? David asked, still incredulous. I'm sure, sir. I can translate the entire document word by word if you want. I can also help with the response that needs to be sent. David began pacing back and forth, his brain working at 1,000 per hour. $2.1 billion, a fortune that was literally in the hands of the woman he had humiliated minutes before. Okay, he said, trying to regain control of the situation. Let's suppose you really know Chinese, but that doesn't mean you understand complex legal documents. You could be translating wrong. Maria remained calm. Mr. Richardson, besides Chinese, I speak German, French, Italian, Russian, Japanese, Korean, and Arabic. I have a master's degree in legal translation and worked as an official translator for the Chinese consulate before joining the university. Each revelation was like a slap in David's face. That woman he treated like garbage had education he could never dream of having, but his arrogance still spoke louder. Even so, I could be paying you to make up anything, he said, crossing his arms. How will I know you're not lying about the amount? That's when Maria did something nobody expected. She took out her old phone and called a number she knew by heart. Hello, Chinese consulate. This is Maria Santos. former official translator. Could you confirm the authenticity of some documents for me? She passed the header data from the documents, spoke in Chinese for several minutes, then hung up. Confirmed. The documents are authentic. They were sent by the law office Li, Wang and Associates from Beijing. The partnership is real. The silence in the office was deafening. David felt as if the ground was opening beneath his feet. Not only was the partnership real, but the woman he despised was the only person there capable of saving him. How much do you want to do the complete translation? He asked, his voice coming out lower than normal. You already made an offer, Maria responded, looking directly into his eyes. Your monthly salary, $200,000. David swallowed hard. It was a high amount, but compared to $2.1 billion, it was almost nothing. Fine, I accept, but it has to be ready by 6 p.m. It will be, Maria said confidently, but I'm going to need a computer, internet access, and for nobody to bother me. Jennifer, clear the conference room for her, David ordered, still somewhat stunned, and give her everything she needs. While Maria headed to the conference room, employees began whispering among themselves. It was impossible to completely process what had happened. The invisible cleaning lady had revealed herself as a highly qualified professional and was now about to save the company from a lost opportunity. I can't believe she really knows Chinese, Robert murmured to Amanda. Dude, she called the consulate in front of us. Amanda responded. You can't fake something like that. David stood in the middle of the office, still trying to understand how he had underestimated someone so much. For 3 years, a former university professor had cleaned his office and he never noticed. Worse, he had treated her as if she were inferior, as if she were stupid. In the conference room, Maria sat in front of the computer and began working. For the first time in 2 years, she felt truly useful again. Her fingers flew across the keyboard, translating not just words, but capturing all the legal nuances that a common translator would miss. While she worked, she thought about everything she had been through. 2 years of humiliation, of being treated as if she were invisible, of hearing comments about her supposed stupidity. Now, ironically, she was the one saving the man who despised her most. The clock showed 4:15 p.m. There was still time, but she knew she needed to be perfect. Not just because she was being well paid for it, but because she wanted to prove to herself that she was still competent, that she still had value. Outside, David walked nervously, looking at the conference room every 5 minutes. $2.1 billion depended on the woman he had called incompetent an hour before. The irony of the situation wasn't lost on anyone in the office. The person he respected least had become the most important of all. At 4:45 p.m., Maria came out of the conference room with a stack of papers in her hands and an expression David couldn't decipher. The entire office stopped to watch when she approached his desk, walking with a posture that no longer matched the cleaning lady image everyone had of her. Ready, Mr. Richardson, she said, placing the organized documents on the desk. Complete translation with all legal terms explained and the response letter already written in Chinese. David picked up the papers with trembling hands. The translation was impeccable, with each paragraph explained in detail. It wasn't just a literal translation, but a professional document that included explanatory notes about the Chinese legal process. Here's everything about the partnership, Maria continued, pointing to specific sections. Your company has been selected for the exclusive representation of Chinese investments in American infrastructure. They're offering not just money, but technology transfer and access to the Asian market. David read each line with wide eyes. The fortune was even bigger than he had imagined. Besides the $2.1 billion in immediate partnership, there were long-term contracts that could generate revenues of over $10 billion in the next 5 years. "And this response letter?" he asked, picking up a document written in Chinese with perfect calligraphy. "Official confirmation of receipt and acceptance of the partnership," Maria explained. "It needs to be sent by express mail today. I also prepared a power of attorney for the Chinese lawyers to begin the transfer process." Jennifer approached to see the documents. "Maria, this is incredible. It looks like work from an international law firm." "Because it is," Maria responded simply. "I've done hundreds of similar documents when I worked at the consulate." David looked at her with a completely new expression. It was no longer contempt or condescension. It was a mixture of forced respect and discomfort at having to acknowledge he was wrong. "You really understand all this," he said. more as a statement than a question. Yes, sir. I worked with international successions for 8 years before joining the university. I know Chinese legislation like it were American. Robert from commercial approached. Curious. Maria, sorry for the question, but how does someone with your education end up working as a cleaning lady? The question everyone wanted to ask had finally been made. Maria took a deep breath, knowing she would have to tell a story she preferred to keep buried. It wasn't by choice, she began, sitting in the chair David offered. As I said, I exposed a scheme at the university. Some professors were selling diplomas to foreigners, falsifying transcripts, charging bribes for approval. And then? Amanda asked, genuinely interested. Then I became the institution's #1 enemy. They not only fired me but spread that I was problematic, destabilizing, difficult to work with. No university wanted to hire me. The office fell silent. It was a situation everyone knew indirectly but had never seen up close. Someone who paid the price for doing the right thing. I tried working as a freelance translator, Maria continued, but the market was saturated. Besides, my husband had lost his job at the same time. He was an engineer at a construction company that went bankrupt. And your daughter? Jennifer asked softly. My daughter Sophia is 16 years old and has type 1 diabetes. She needs imported insulin, regular exams, constant medical monitoring. The health insurance cut our coverage when we lost our jobs. David felt a tightness in his chest. For 3 years, he had treated badly a woman who was fighting to keep her daughter alive. The guilt began to hit, but he tried to disguise it. Why, that's why you accepted working as a cleaning lady? He asked, avoiding looking directly into her eyes. I had no choice. I needed a job with a signed contract to have the right to the company's health plan. When the cleaning company offered the position, I accepted immediately. But that was 3 years ago, Robert observed. Why didn't you look for another job after? Maria smiled bitterly. You think it's easy to explain in an interview why a former university professor is working as a cleaning lady. People think you're lying, or that you did something very wrong. The truth hurt more than anyone in the office was prepared to hear. They had lived for 3 years with a highly qualified woman, treating her as if she were invisible, as if she were less capable than any of them. Besides, Maria continued, the salary here, even being low, at least was fixed. I could pay for Sophia's treatment and keep our house. It wasn't the job of my dreams, but it was dignified. David shifted uncomfortably in his chair. He remembered all the times he had complained about her to Jennifer, how he treated cleaning employees as if they were objects. You never thought about telling someone about your education? Amanda asked. For what? For you to think I was lying? To be fired for not fitting the job profile? Maria shook her head. I learned that sometimes it's better to be underestimated than discredited. And your husband, how did he deal with all this? Jennifer asked. My husband Carlos got a job as an app driver. He earns less than me, but at least we're managing to survive. He supports me in everything, never made me feel less because of the work. David looked at the clock. 5:15 p.m. There was still time to send the documents, but he needed to go personally to the post office to ensure they arrived on time. Maria, I need to go to the post office now, he said, getting up. But before I want to say something, everyone in the office paid attention. David rarely made speeches, and when he did, it was usually to complain about something. I treated you badly during these 3 years, he began, clearly uncomfortable. I didn't know your story, but that doesn't justify it. Nobody deserves to be treated the way I treated you. Maria looked at him with a neutral expression. Thank you for acknowledging, Mr. Richardson. No, let me finish, he insisted. You just saved me from losing the biggest opportunity of my life. An opportunity I almost threw away out of pure arrogance. The office was in absolute silence. They had never seen David apologize to anyone, much less to an employee. You're going to receive the $200,000 I promised, he continued. But besides that, I want to offer a real job as international consultant for the company. Salary of $15,000 per month with full benefits. The offer caught Maria by surprise. She had expected to receive the money and return to her normal routine, but hadn't expected a job proposal. I don't know what to say, she responded honestly. Think calmly, David said, picking up the documents. But know that it would be an honor to have someone with your qualification officially working for the company. While he ran out to the post office, the office stayed in a strange atmosphere. Employees who minutes before saw Maria as a cleaning lady now looked at her as a respected professional. "Maria," Robert approached, "I want to apologize. I laughed at you today, and that was wrong." "Me too," Amanda added. "I never imagined you had been through all this." One by one, employees approached to apologize. Maria received the apologies politely, but it was visible that the situation made her uncomfortable. She wasn't used to being the center of attention. "You don't need to apologize," she said. "I know it was just an unusual situation. But we do need to," Jennifer insisted. "We worked with you for 3 years and never bothered to really get to know you." Maria smiled for the first time that day. "Thank you. That means a lot to me." At 6:20 p.m., David returned from the post office, sweaty and breathless, but relieved. "I made it. Documents sent with guaranteed delivery tomorrow morning in Beijing." He approached Maria, who was still in the room talking with other employees. "So, what do you think about the proposal?" "Mr. Richardson, it's a generous offer," she responded, "but I need to think about it. It's not a simple decision." "Of course, I understand, but I hope you accept. Having someone with your experience would be incredible for our international business." Maria nodded. "I'll talk to my husband and give you an answer tomorrow." "Perfect," David smiled. "And Maria?" "Yes, thank you. Not just for the translation, but for teaching me a lesson I needed to learn." Maria picked up her purse and headed to the door. "See you tomorrow, everyone." When she left, the office fell silent again. Everyone was processing what had happened. A woman they saw as invisible had revealed herself as the most competent person in the place. "Man," Robert murmured, "we worked 3 years with the former university professor and never knew. Imagine how many other people we misjudge every day," Amanda reflected. David sat in his chair, still processing everything. $2.1 billion were on the way. But more important than that, he had learned something about himself that he didn't like at all. For 3 years, he had treated an extraordinary woman as if she were garbage. And ironically, she had been the one to save him when he needed it most. The lesson was just beginning. The next morning, Maria arrived at the office at the usual time, 7 a.m., but this time she wasn't wearing the blue uniform of the cleaning company. She wore a simple white social blouse and black pants, but which made her look like a completely different person. The employees who arrived early were surprised to see her in the reception, sitting in the chairs reserved for visitors. "Good morning, Maria." Paula, the receptionist, greeted her with a genuine smile. "You look beautiful today. Very different." "Thank you, Paula. I'm waiting for Mr. Richardson to give my answer about the job proposal." "Oh, how nice. I hope you accept. Yesterday everyone was talking about your story. It's impressive what you went through." Maria smiled, still getting used to the fact that now people looked at her differently. For 3 years, she had been practically invisible, and now everyone wanted to talk to her. David arrived at 8:30 a.m., half an hour earlier than normal. He was anxious to know Maria's answer, but also nervous about how it would be to work with someone he had treated so badly. "Good morning, Maria," he said, approaching the reception. "You decided?" "Good morning, Mr. Richardson. Yes, I accept your proposal, but I have some conditions." "Of course, you can speak. First, I want to work part-time for the first 2 weeks to train my replacement in cleaning. I don't want to leave the company in trouble." David was impressed. Even after everything she had been through, she still worried about the work she would leave behind. "Second," she continued, "I want my salary to be deposited directly into the account of the clinic where my daughter is treated. I don't want to risk delaying any payment." "No problem. Anything else?" "Yes. I want a written contract with all functions well defined. I don't want anyone to be able to say in the future that I wasn't qualified for the position." David nodded. "Fair. I'll ask legal to prepare everything today." They went up to the office, curious where Jennifer was already organizing the day's agenda. When she saw Maria, she smiled and got up to greet her. "Maria, I'm so glad you accepted. It's going to be wonderful working with you officially." "Thank you, Jennifer. I'm excited too." David headed to his office, but before entering he turned to Maria. "Oh, I forgot to mention. An email arrived from Beijing early this morning. The lawyers confirmed receipt of the documents. They said it was the most impeccable translation work they had ever seen." Maria smiled. "I'm glad they liked it. Not only did they like it, they want to hire you for other cases. It seems you have a reputation there that I didn't know about." It's possible. I worked with the Li Wang and Associates firm several times when I was at the consulate. During the morning, Maria was officially introduced to all departments. It was strange to see people's reactions. Some were still processing the transformation. Others greeted her with genuine respect. At 10 a.m., David received a call that completely changed the course of the day. Mr. Richardson, Jennifer called him on the intercom. There's a Mr. Li Wei on the line. He says he's a lawyer from Beijing and it's urgent. David answer.